Well, we are continuing our series today, Peace and Nonviolent Communication. And I want to see if we can make this a little more relevant for ourselves today and go ahead and start making it applicable right here in the beginning of service instead of waiting to the end. And the way I'd like to do that is I'm going to invite you to think about an interaction you may have had recently, an individual one, or maybe it's something ongoing in a relationship that you deal with. There's that one person that just drives you crazy, right? Something going on there. I want you to bring that to mind, something where you might not enjoy the interaction so much. So bring that to mind just for a second. And then once you have it, I want you to think about the specific thing that that person does. What is the specific thing that that person does? And define that in your mind. It might be something they say. It might be something they don't say. It might be something they do. It might be something they don't do, right? Both of those things can annoy us, can't they? Sure they can. So keep this in mind as we move through our talk today about nonviolent communication and how you might be able to apply some of the things we're talking about to this particular situation. We'll revisit a few times throughout the morning, so kind of keep that one over here in the side of your mind. Don't focus on it, focus on me, but think about it. So my talk today is the mechanics of speaking peace. The mechanics of actually speaking peace and how we do that. And it's from the book by Marshall Rosenberg. Thank you, Lynn. Lynn gifted me with this a while back. And this is his second book. I think this was 05. His first book was 03, which was Nonviolent Communication and a Language of Life. Very good books if you have an interest in exploring these techniques of nonviolent communication. I'm finding it quite transformative. I'll just say that from my own standpoint. But what is it? What is nonviolent communication? I went to Rosenberg's website, and he says nonviolent communication is based on the principles of nonviolence. And he says that the natural state of compassion when no violence is present in our hearts. It's our natural state of compassion. It begins by assuming that we are all compassionate by nature and that violent strategies, whether verbal or physical, are learned behaviors and taught and supported by the prevailing culture. Now, if we widen our perspective and we think about the global cultures of the world, we can see how these physical and verbal violent tendencies are taught, even in our own country. If we think about, many of us grew up in the 60s and we saw things like Gunsmoke and Bonanza and shoot-em-ups, and we all had guns and cowboys and Indians and stuff. Well, today we'd look at that and go, that's a little violent, isn't it? The guns and things and Star Wars and the shooting and all that stuff. So culturally, that's what he's talking about. It's learned behaviors that are taught. It also assumes that we all share the same basic human needs and that each of our actions are a strategy to meet one or more of our needs. And that makes sense, doesn't it? We all have those human needs and we want those met on some level. So I want to go to his first book where he gives us another little definition of this. And he says nonviolent communication helps us connect with each other and ourselves in a way that allows our natural compassion, again that word compassion, to flourish. It guides us to reframe the way we express ourselves and listen to others by focusing our consciousness on 4 areas. And we're going to talk about these today. What we are observing, what we are feeling, what we are needing, and what we are requesting to enrich our lives. He says it fosters deep listening, respect, empathy, and engenders a mutual desire to give from the heart. Some people use this to respond compassionately to themselves, our own self-love, and some to create greater depth in their personal relationships with others, and still others to build effective relationships at work or in the political arena. Worldwide, these techniques are used to mediate disputes and conflicts at all levels. Now that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? And in alignment with our teaching from the standpoint of creating a world that works for all. Reverend Glenn touched last week on the two questions that are central to this book. The first one is, what is alive in you? What is alive in me? Well, we don't talk like that, do we? What's alive in you today, Lynn? We don't talk like that. What do we do? How you doing? How are you? What's up? What's happening? And we've got some programmed responses, don't we? Good, fine, okay, outstanding, excellent. These one-word programmed responses. It's not getting to that deeper level of connectivity and conversation. The second question he has is, what can we do to make this life more wonderful for ourselves and others? What can we do to make our lives more wonderful for ourselves and others? Another interesting question. But when we think about that, it brings us fully present into the moment, doesn't it? And allows us to think then about being of service to other people and being of service to ourselves, of bringing ourselves joy. These are really good centering questions for us to keep us in that present moment, to keep us there. But that genuine answer of, how are you? Takes a little longer than just a one word, I'm good, I'm okay. Takes a little longer conversation. So, how are you? How are you right now? What's up? What's alive in you right now in this moment? What are your concerns? What are your worries, your dreams? What are your intentions? We asked that question Wednesday night in our study group. What are your intentions for the month of September? We all did our intentions for the first of the year, and here we are in the 9th month. What are your intentions? How you doing on those that we set in January? So what's up with you? What's happening inside of you? How is life expressing inside of you right now? What's coming forward? What's bubbling up? How are you? So we need to cultivate this willingness, don't we? To have those conversations at that level, to be vulnerable. There's a little bit of vulnerability in that. Not just saying, I'm good, but stopping and saying, I had some things happen over the weekend that are going on with me. I had this, I had that, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling concerned for family and friends in some of these areas that are being impacted by some of Mother Nature's stuff. Deeper conversation, isn't it? To open up and express what's on our heart, what's in our minds, what we're moving through. And it could be good stuff too, right? I had a spectacular weekend. The best thing happened. And sharing that. But I find we're more likely to share that good stuff than we are the stuff that's really, really working us, aren't we? Yeah. So this sounds very simple. Just communicate, right? Just communicate. But it's not that easy. It's not that easy to actually put into place because we have been taught a system of reward and punishment. We've been taught a system of reward and punishment. We've been educated to think more about what other people think of us than what we think of us. And we've been particularly around authority figures, teachers, bosses, parents, that idea of reward and punishment. If we do well, we'll get the good grades. If we please our parents, we get their love. If we please our bosses, we might get that promotion. If we displease them, we might get punished, right? No love, no grades, no promotion. So we're taught this system of reward and punishment from very early ages. And then we kind of pretzel ourselves into something to try to please everybody's everything, don't we? Yeah. So think right now in your life where this might be active. Where might this reward and punishment system be active in your life, either as a giver or a receiver? Because it works both ways, doesn't it? If you're the child or if you're the parent. Yeah, it works both ways for us. It's kind of that old carrot and stick thing. Where in your life is it active? Let's go back to that interaction we talked about in the very beginning. That thing or person or situation or incident that you brought to mind. I ask you to think about the thing that they did. Can you think about that without evaluation? Without evaluation about what was happening with that? This is very interesting because most of us evaluate everything, don't we? We assign it meaning. We were talking again in Wednesday night about how we're meaning-making machines. That's what we do. Something happens, we assign a meaning to it. And then remember our drawers that we pull things out of in the back, that all those old belief systems we tap into when something happens? That's how we fill in the blanks and make stuff up and jump to conclusions. You know anybody that jumps to conclusions? You don't have to admit it. Yeah, we jump to conclusions, but we do that because we've got this whole inventory of stuff back here. Looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck. Oops, nope, it's not. It's a duck, right? Remember that? Yeah. So our brains are wired that way for us. Our brains are wired that way for efficiency. But our evaluation can create problems, can't it? Our evaluation can create problems. We make up these stories and we're constantly assigning that meaning. An example from the book. Examples are great. He's got some great stories in here. So an example from the book. There's a woman in one of his workshops, and she is concerned about something her teenage daughter did not do. It's all the information. So Marshall asks her this question. He says, what was it that your teenage daughter did not do? What was it she didn't do? The response? She's lazy. Does that tell us anything? No. That's an evaluation, isn't it? It's an evaluation. Actually, it's a diagnosis of her. The question, what does she do? But the answer, what she is. She's lazy. Does that mean she didn't do her homework? What does that mean? No. Rosenberg suggests that labeling people as lazy diagnoses them and leads to self-fulfilling prophecies. Leads to self-fulfilling prophecies. And we've seen this in school children, where a child will be introduced into a classroom, maybe to a new teacher, and they've done experiments where they tell the teacher that this is the most brilliant, genius child in the whole school system, that it's just the most disciplined and the most honest and the easygoing and just this delight to have in the class and just excels. And the teacher treats the child accordingly. And at the end of the school year, they look at the grades from the year before. This was the bully, or this was the one that got poor grades. This is the one that was a disciplinary problem in classes. But because this teacher treated this child as if it were something else, it responded that way. And the same is true with us. We respond up or down to expectations. My golf game, we've used that example before. If I'm playing with skilled players, I play up. If I'm playing with less skilled players, I get lazy. Right? Yeah, we play up or we play down. Diagnosing someone, saying, you're lazy. Well, Mom says I'm lazy, I guess I get to be lazy, right? We just own it then, don't we? So that's diagnosing of people creates a defensiveness in them. I'm not done with that yet. So, another example. There's a group of teachers, and they are having a conflict on a board. Anybody ever served on boards? Anybody ever had conflicts on boards? Sure, it happens all the time, doesn't it? Homeowners associations are my favorite, and Carson's not here to hear this. He serves on an association. So this example, they're having a conflict with the school administrator, and Marshall asks the question again, what is it that he does that you do not like? The first response, he's got a big mouth. Marshall says, well, I didn't ask you the size of his mouth. I asked you what he does. right? What does he do? The next response says, he talks too much. It's like, well, too much is another diagnosis. That's not specific. And the third response, he thinks he's the only one in the room with any intelligence. Telling me what you think he thinks is an evaluation. What does he do? This is not that easy, is it? It's not that easy to boil this down into actually what is the specific thing that he does. It turns out that during the meetings, this administrator would take whatever topic came up on the agenda or not and go off on some tangents and relate it to his war stories or his stories as a child. And so he would extend these meetings well beyond the hour or so that they were supposed to be, and so he was not respecting their time. And they were angry about that. They were angry about that. But that's what he did. But all of these other things that they were saying were evaluations, weren't they? They were judgments of him. They were not specifically what it was he did. And you can see when they would challenge him about, you've got such a big mouth, you just think you're the smartest one. What does that set up? Defensiveness, right? He's going to defend himself against that because he's feeling attacked. Whereas a more empowering conversation could be something along the lines of, our meetings are taking a really long time. Maybe we can stay on the agenda. Let's stay on the agenda and just say the topic and talk about that so that we can all leave on time today. Something more empowering the conversation and not making it an attack on the individual and evaluating their behavior. So we need to develop a language that we can use, because saying things like that can be hard, can't it? Trying to have those difficult conversations, we need a language for this, so where we can communicate more clearly and effectively. And we want to be specific and concrete in our words with that. Specific and concrete. So let's go back to your situation. Let's go back to your situation and bring that to mind again. Were you judging, blaming, making wrong the other person in that situation? Or were you able to really extrapolate down to what is that behavior? What is that behavior, that act that is happening? Can we strip it down? Like we did in that teacher's example. It's not this, it's not this, it's not this. This is what it is. This is what the response is on that. Easy? Not so much. Yeah, not so much. Because we're trained the other way, aren't we? Let me tell you my story. I've made up this story about what's happening in this thing and this guy and what he's doing and how it is. And oh my gosh, I got to tell you my story. The drama. Yikes, right? We have to go through all that stuff before we can get, well, what's the bottom line here? Oh, well, he just takes up so much meeting time and I got to get home and feed my kids, and that's the bottom line. Yeah. So Rosenberg says that we want to be honest without using words that imply wrongness, criticism, insult, judgment, or psychological diagnosis. Now, we all sit here and go, I don't criticize. I would never try to analyze anybody. I'm not going to make them wrong. But can you see how subtle it is? Yeah, it's pretty subtle just in our languaging. So let's go through a few more examples, because I believe in examples, and he's got some good ones in here. So let's see. This is a test. Observation or evaluation. John was angry with me yesterday for no reason. Evaluation, right? That's an evaluation. Yesterday evening, Nancy bit her fingernails while watching television. Observation. That's an observation. Sam didn't ask for my opinion during the meeting. Observation. My father is a good man. Evaluation. Janice works too much. Evaluation. Henry is aggressive. Evaluation. Pam was first in line every day this week. Observation. My son often doesn't brush his teeth. Evaluation. What is often? Every day, once a week, right? Luke told me I didn't look good in yellow. Observation. My aunt complains when I talk to her. Evaluation. He suggests that a different way to say that would be, my aunt called me 3 times this week and each time talked about people who treated her in ways she didn't like. Observation. So you can see how this works around the languaging, right? Yeah, you can see how those work. So 2 powerful tools that he offers us in developing this new form of vocabulary, literacy, that he calls it literacy, but it's really a new vocabulary. And it's about feelings, and it's about our needs. What are we feeling? What need of ours is not being met? So that we can know and articulate what's alive in us in that moment that we might be in conflict with someone. Because that's another good time to check in with what's alive in us, isn't it? How do I feel about this? What am I feeling in this moment? Am I feeling attacked? Am I feeling fear? Am I feeling sadness? What am I feeling in this moment? So we need to be clear about what we feel and what we need. And that's internal work, isn't it? That's internal work that we get to do. So back to your situation. I told you we were going to use this a lot. Back to your situation. How do you feel? How do you feel when that happens, when that person does that behavior that we've identified? How do you feel? What happens in here? What are the emotions when they do that? Can you identify them? Let's go back to another example in the book. Talking with a college person who's got a roommate. And this person gets annoyed with the roommate when the roommate plays the music loud at night and this person's trying to sleep. He gets annoyed. Marshall's question, how do you feel when he does that? The response, I feel it's wrong. Right, no, yeah. He says that's a judgment. What's the emotion? How do you feel when he does this? When a person is so insensitive to other people, it's evidence of a personality disturbance. That's a psychological evaluation, isn't it? More judgment, psychological diagnosis. He says, get out of your head, get into your heart. How do you feel when he does this? How do you feel when he does this? He thinks for a few minutes and finally goes, pissed off. And Marshall goes, okay, there's other ways to say that, but okay, that works, right? So we need to develop this vocabulary of feelings. Now, he's got several in the book. I've got a slide for us that goes through a bunch of these. If we are feeling fulfilled, things like amazed, confident, joyous, surprised, thankful, those are the types of things when we're feeling fulfilled in a situation. When we're not feeling fulfilled, angry, annoyed, puzzled, discouraged, embarrassed, lonely. So thinking about how we actually feel in that situation, what's the emotion that's coming up for you in your situation? What is the feeling? And it was interesting to do some of the exercises in the book because some of those, it was like, oh, well, what is the situation? And going through the list and really checking those off and going, no, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. Oh, this is how I would feel in that situation. So it's a good way to begin to train ourselves on what some of those different subtleties of the feelings are that we have. So Rosenberg says that the cause of our feelings is not other people's behaviors. It's our needs. It's our needs. It's not their behavior, it's our needs. Because it comes down to us, doesn't it? And our needs not being met. Nobody can make us feel anything we don't choose to feel, right? They can be a stimulus for us to start having feelings because a need is not being met. but it really is about the needs that we have that are not being met in that moment that cause these emotions to come up within us. So literacy of needs. Literacy of needs. He's got a whole other laundry list in there of needs that we have as well. But having needs, we think of that as being needy, being weak. It's not. It's the divine within us, isn't it? We're all individualized and unique expressions of spirit. And as such, we have our individualized needs for how we experience life through us. And each one in this room is completely different, because we are so unique in that expression. So having our needs is not being dependent, not being selfish. It's just part of who we are as human beings on the planet today. And back to the story of the mother. Remember her? The mother with the lazy daughter? Remember that? So did I tell you what she was upset about? I never did? Yeah. She was upset because her daughter wasn't cleaning her room. Bring up any memories? Moms or daughters, right? Or sons, right? Sure. We've probably all experienced that at some point in our life. Different levels of acceptable messiness. So she called her daughter lazy for not cleaning up her room. What do you think Mom's need was? What do you think her need was in that situation that was not being met with her daughter not cleaning up her room? Well, Marshall asked her. Marshall asked her, what was your need? Any guess? No, I'm going to have you guess. The need was that she needed order in her life. She needed beauty in her life. And when she looked at her daughter's room, she didn't feel beauty and order. So the need within her was, help me fulfill this. And she gave him all these excuses about, well, if you're going to be in the family, you've got to contribute to the whole family and things like that. And he's like, no, that's not it. But it really came down to her own personal need for order and beauty, and having that experience and having the support of her family. Having the support of her family, that her daughter was willing to help out and keep the house or the room orderly and neat. So that was Mom's need in that. They can be that simple, can't they? They can be that simple. But those little things that can make us very upset, crazy, leaving the lid off the toothpaste. That bug anybody? You've ever had a roommate or spouse or significant other that leaves the tube off the lid off the toothpaste? Make you crazy? Cabinet doors, leaving cabinet doors open, not closing them. Little things, right? All those crazy little things that start to create annoyances within us. I see grins. Yeah, there's crazy things in our life that do that. So the process for evaluating our situation, he gave us those 4 steps. The first is observe. Observe the behavior or the action that's happening. Observe, what is it? Separating the act from the actor, remember? Observe. Don't evaluate. The second, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? What is the emotion that I am feeling in this situation? The third is what need of mine is connected to that feeling that I don't think is being met right now. What need of mine? My need for order, my need for safety, my need for security. What is the need that I'm feeling in this moment that's not being met? And then the fourth that we haven't really talked too much about is the request. To be clear and concrete in our request and our asking without demanding. Because how do you respond to a demand? Right? We have a tendency to rebel against demands. Requests, absolutely. How can I help? How can I be of service? So we had a second question. We had a second question that was in his 2 questions in the beginning, and that is, what can be done to make life more wonderful To not be part of the problem, to be part of the solution, like Johnny Appleseed, spreading joy and love everywhere. How can I be part of the solution and no longer part of the problem? Both in my own life and in the lives of others. So how I can do that for myself is to quit berating myself, criticizing myself, how I can take better care of myself physically, mentally, and emotionally and spiritually, right? Those are ways that we can make life more wonderful for ourselves, is by watching our thoughts, by changing behaviors that no longer serve us, changing beliefs that no longer serve us. Yeah. So back to your situation. You're going to solve this today, you know that? Back to your situation. What request could you make? You've observed it. You've looked at just the behavior itself. You've defined your feelings in that. You've defined your need. What request can you now make of this person that is specific, concrete, that's not a demand? How can you do that? He says it should be in the form of positive action language. In other words, what we want and not what we don't want. Boy, do we do that one all the time. I know what I don't want. I'm just not sure what I want yet, but I know what I don't want. We're pretty clear on what we don't want, aren't we? Good example again, teachers lecturing, and a boy on the second row was tapping his pencil on his book, and it's getting a little annoying. She goes, "Excuse me, could you stop tapping your pencil on your book?" And he does. And about 20 seconds later, he starts tapping on the desk. Did she get what she wanted? Yeah. No, she did not get what she wanted, because what she really wanted was silence. Still, stop tapping everything, right? But because her request was not clear, she didn't get exactly what she was really wanting, which was him to be still in the chair. That's a good example, I think. Are you ever unclear in your request? Yeah? Sometimes. So the purpose of nonviolent communication is to create connections to people and to give one another compassion, not out of fear of punishment or reward, but out of that natural joy that we feel when we contribute to another's well-being. Think of it as service. And we do service here in our community, don't we? And we know how good it feels to be of service, to be a volunteer in our community, to do our outreach into Camino, Vista del Camino, and working within the community and so forth. When we hand out those blessing bags to those on the street corners, we know how good that service feels, that natural compassion that comes up within us. And we've got he says there's an energy, a divine energy manifested in the joy we feel in giving to one another. There's a divine energy manifested in that joy. And we've all felt that, haven't we? That joy of giving to another. We've got an opportunity this week with our donations and our activities around that of giving to the efforts in Houston for those that have been displaced, those that are homeless, those that are still trying to clean out and clean up their homes, everything that's happening there. We've got this opportunity for us to be in service to that, to feel this compassion for others. Again, most of us can't go there. We can't go there and physically help. We can't ride the boats and do those things to physically help with this, but we can certainly send some things to help them help themselves, can't we? We can certainly do that. And I think about all of the opportunities that we have right now. I mentioned earlier all of the disasters, for lack of a better word, that are happening across our planet. The Northwest fires, I think there's 1,300 fires now. We've got flooding in Asia. We've got the earthquake in Mexico City. We've got the hurricane, even as we speak now, making its way up the Florida coast. We all have loved ones, friends, family, our centers, everything that's there, and everybody in the Caribbean. There's so much happening right now. So much happening. And we have an opportunity to step into compassionate caring. You know, Mother Nature is shaking right now in all of the discourse and everything that's been going on our planet. And now we are the collective consciousness coming together with this human compassion of service to each other, service to one another. All through, we see it everywhere, don't we? We're seeing it on the news, we're seeing it on our social media, of people coming together to help, to lend assistance, to be there in support of each other. That's our natural compassion. The polarization, the arguments, and the other things that are happening, that's not who we are. We are here to be love. We are here to be compassion. And this is an opportunity for us in this room to bring this forward and to connect at our local, personal, global levels. Ernest Holmes tells us in The Science of Mind that compassion and caring are the ties that bind us together in mutual understanding and in the unified attempt to uncover the divinity in each other. We're looking for the divinity in each other and within ourselves. Compassion is the most gentle of all human virtues, and it is the outpouring of the divine givingness through all. There. So, life is to be lived. We're here to love and be loved. That's our only purpose, is to love and be loved. And this idea of nonviolent communication is a powerful tool, don't you think? It's transformative, takes some work, takes some practice, but it is transformative in how we interact with each other on a daily basis. Imagine what a world we could live in if we all practiced this. So let's look at 3 quick ways that we can practice. The first one is using the questions. Using the questions. What is alive in you? Observe, feel, see what the need is, and then request. Use those 4 things. What's up for you? What's going on? Be willing to be vulnerable and share what's going on. Be willing to listen to what's going on. Number 2, notice where you use reward and punishment in your communication. I think we all do it, and it's very subtle in many cases. But pay attention this week to where that might be occurring, either as the giver or the receiver in that. If you've got a tardy employee, or you work with someone that's tardy, can you use nonviolent communication to have a conversation with them without making them wrong, so they get defensive? Without criticizing, without threatening? Can you use nonviolent communication? What about our relationships? Can you have empowering conversations around taking out the trash? Yeah. Instead of the same old conversation maybe we've had over and over and over again. If you don't take out the trash, I'm going to be mad at you. I'm going to withhold my love from you if you don't take out the trash. That's punishment, isn't it? You see it in forgiveness or unforgiveness, where we think, if I don't forgive that person, I'm punishing them. We're punishing ourselves, aren't we? We're punishing ourselves. And then my favorite, the freeway. How about the freeway? You ever been in a construction zone? It's coming down to one lane, and somebody goes flying to the front of the line and tries to jump in and nose in. And everybody's angry and going, I'm not letting him in. He didn't play nice. Right? You ever have those feelings? That's punishment for bad behavior, right? Yeah. It's a reward and punishment. And this other person comes up all nice and sweet. And it's like, oh, well, I'll let you in. You played nice. I'm the only one that does that. Come on. So notice this week where this is active in your life. Notice when it's active in your life. Number 3, how can I make life more wonderful for me? And how can I make it more wonderful for you? What a lovely perspective on life. How can I make life more wonderful for you? What can I do to make life more wonderful for you? What a fabulous perspective that we can have. Revealing our inherent compassionate nature of being of service to others on our planet. Without judgment. Without drama. Being of service. So the key for speaking peace is self-awareness. Would you agree? Self-awareness, staying present in the now moment so that we can be aware of our conversation and not going on the autopilot and reaching in the old drawers. Being aware. And then recognize when we are being of service and when we're evaluating, when we're observing and when we're evaluating. Because we might be assigning meanings that are not true. It's quite possible. So I want to close this today with a quote by Rumi, one of my favorites, where he says, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field, and I will meet you there. I will meet you there." So I invite you to meet me now there as we join in affirmative prayer, anchoring this truth today of peace on our planet. As we recognize that there is only one power, one presence, that is that power and presence of God, the source, the infinite presence, spirit. It is all that there is. There is nothing else, nothing outside of it. Stars, planets, situation, people, nothing. It's all God, it's all good, and it's all right here, right now. In, through, and as me is an expression individualized and unique of it, and in, through, and as each one in this room, for I know that we are all those individualized lights of God in form, in expression, in this moment. And I know, too, that all that are impacted by any of the situations, the weather events, the fires, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes that are happening on our planet right now, we lift each of those up into this light of this consciousness in this room right now, up into love, up into peace, and this higher vibration of knowing that this too shall pass. And that as we all come together in the one, as the one, that solutions are found, that services are rendered, that support and help are brought, that our first responders are blessed and efficient and effective, and that our loved ones are safe. And I speak a word of blessing on Mother Nature herself and our planet, knowing that the healing that is occurring there is deep, connected, and it too is one with each one of us. So I bless each one of us in our week ahead, our day ahead, whatever we may have on our hearts and minds, knowing healing, compassion, prosperity, wisdom, clarity, whatever it may be that we seek. So, with great gratitude, great joy, I release this into the activity of law, knowing that it is done. It is already made manifest in the mind of God. It is already made manifest in life expressing. We just await it in form. We affirm this together by saying, and so it is.